All right, people. Hi, my name is Celine Coggins. I'm the Executive Director of Grantmakers for Education. And welcome to our session today. I'm going to just be flipping between two slide decks. And so let me just pull up the first one right now. Okay, great. So you're here with us for our session on what's new with Grantmakers for Education, our strategy, offerings, and brand. So this is our moment to kind of come out to you all and let you know what we did through all of 2021. So what you're going to see, just kind of with all sorts of context in terms of our slides today, is our new brand identity. So this was something when I came on at Grantmakers for Education a few years ago. I looked at our website. I said, this is really something that we're going to want to tackle. And the colors were a little dated, the style was a little dated, the content was a little dated. And so this has been something that we spent a lot of time on in 2021. 2021, as you all know, seemed like a really good time to just go internal and really think about who we are as an organization, what we want our brand to communicate. And so this is really kind of, so you see that, you see it in a new color scheme that we're really excited about. You'll see it in kind of a new way of thinking for the website. And finally, you'll see it in a new strategic plan. So we spent a lot of time with a great organization called Building Impact last year, and really kind of thought through what is it that our members are telling us they want from us, what are we doing well, what could we do better. And so we're going to share a lot of information that led us to some of the conclusions for the new brand that we're going to be kind of moving forward with, and our new strategy that we're going to be moving forward with. So let's see, a couple of things that I want to say. What you're going to see, and you can even see this as we go through the slides, is we're Grantmakers for Education. At the same time, you all know our website is edfunders.org. All of our email addresses are edfunders.org. We're trying to lean in a little bit more to the EdFunders piece of our name. And so I'm going to be kind of practicing that a little bit as we go through today as well. So I think most of you know, and I think you can see these now, I am a researcher by training. I think a really important part of running a network is allowing members to kind of see themselves in how they fit within a larger whole. So we're almost 300 members strong. And so we asked a set of questions to all of our members, and we allowed anyone from any of the member organizations that we serve to take this survey. So what we were really trying to do is get at, where should we be headed? What should we keep from what we've done in the past? Where should we shift? And so I wanted to share the survey data first, because that really sets the context. The strategy doesn't come from my brain or our team. The strategy really should come from you. And so I'm the one who went through all of the data. I'm the one who put together this presentation. I love this kind of stuff. And I'll start with, so first is who took the survey. About 30% were the top folks in the organization. The majority of folks who took the survey, or the plurality, were program officers. A little bit more information on who took the survey. We had about 26% from family foundations, 25 almost from private foundations. We have a large number of hybrid members who both do grant making and grant seeking. When we looked, the majority do national grant making. And then when we moved on to some of the demographics of the folks who took the survey, we had a 61% white respondent rate. And let's see, that was 16% identifying as Hispanic origin. Let's see. Now we asked the question, how likely are you to recommend EdFunders? This was really great, I think. We are in a place where about 88.6% of people said that they would recommend EdFunders to others in the education funding space. So that's great and exciting to us, and happy to hear. One of the things that I wanted to note is that we had 284 survey responses. In the time that I've been at Grantmakers for Education, we've done 3 or 4 surveys, and this is by far the highest response rate. To me, that's a really important indicator of just interest in our members, in helping the organization to grow and get better and really listen. So I appreciate everyone who took the time to do the survey. In the past 3 years, and these were really hard years, 93% of the people who replied to the survey said they had participated in programming with us. I'm thrilled for that. That's really great in these pandemic years. Next is just the question of what you all see us doing. And what we put here were the top 5 and the bottom 5 of a long list. We gave like 20 plus possibilities of what are we doing? What are we supposed to be doing? So sharing ideas and elevating best practice, offering programming on a wide range of topics, offering members opportunities to share their work, creating space for diverse perspectives and healthy debate, and space for members to collaborate. All of those were, kind of our highest responses. That's what people see us doing every day. What are we doing less of? What really came up at the kind of bottom of what people see us doing? Taking public policy positions, engaging in policy development, taking public positions on best practices in education, supporting DEI growth for boards and trustees, and catalyzing racial justice work across education funders. So those are a couple of, kind of buckets of areas where we're not doing very much in the eyes of members. We can't do everything. I'll start there. And then I'll say, so what do folks want us to do? So a lot of this, there is alignment. So creating space for funders with diverse perspectives, sharing ideas and elevating best practices. But then we see here in number 3, catalyze racial justice work across funders. So that's something that came up really low on what are we doing, but came up really high on what do our members want us to do. Facilitate collaboration. And then 5th, also an area of disjuncture. Taking public positions on best practices in education philanthropy. So those are just some places where we're thinking, where you'll see some changes to our strategic plan that reflect what we're hearing from members here. Next is member perspectives on ed funders as a big tent. So this is a question. We have almost 300 members, and especially in this era that grows increasingly polarized, there's a question of whether or not we should really be a big tent. And so what we saw of our members is most identify, as I would, saying that we're kind of a left-leaning organization, but we have exceptions within that. And then we ask the question, how should we be approaching issues? And so we're starting to think about this stating public positions, but allowing all funders to become members. So there was this question of, should we be more of a closed community? Should we be more of a small community that has a real clear ideological point of view? Generally, we heard from members, and I'm really excited about this. No, we have to kind of take a stand on some issues, but we should do so very, very carefully and mostly create space for healthy debate on issues. What do we do well? People say convening and collaboration, information, kind of identifying trends and best practices, and our annual conference. Where we could improve, greater focus on issues of diversity and racial justice, more programming targeted to small foundations in rural areas, and more policy and partnerships work, which is exciting to me. I have a PhD in policy. Let's see. Member perspectives on our work on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So what you see is we ask the question, have we partnered with leading organizations? So oftentimes that's you, our members, that we're partnering with, but we see a lot of positivity around partnering with strong organizations to put together good programming in this area. So most people agree with that. We have, over 85% who agree or strongly agree that we've done some of that type of partnership programming. And you'll see in our strategic plan, we're leaning into that partnership area in DEIJ. Are we a leader on these issues? So most people would disagree with that. I think that that's fair. I think it's important to kind of acknowledge where people see us. Partner, bring really strong area grantees in that space and funders in that space, not necessarily GFE fully in the lead. But do we provide programming that pushes your thinking? Yes, about 65% that say they agree or strongly disagree. Are we responsive to issues of diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice? Very much so at 82%. But do you know what actions GFE is taking? That's a place where we see 64% saying no, we don't really know. And so we're going to be working a little bit harder this year to share a little bit about, what is our learning journey as an organization. We worked for the year with Beloved Communities doing an equity audit last year, and then doing some training, then doing some customized work from there. I got to participate in a leaders training with Pahara Institute. Those are the types of things that we'll both work together with members on and then get to share our own experiences a little bit more. Are our member foundations focusing more on these issues? We see a resounding yes. In the cases where folks didn't say yes, it's because they said that's always what we've been doing. So, so there's a lot to kind of build on there in terms of what our members are working on. Who should be the audience? This kind of says everyone, and that's not very surprising. Most of our programming is geared more to the program officer level. We hear quite often, also please do offerings for our board, our trustees, that kind of thing. Satisfaction with level of engagement. This is good. Mostly we see satisfaction. And then we ask questions about what are we doing? Encouraged collaboration is good, included diverse presenters, addressed education equity. Then you start to see a little bit of fall off on help me learn about relevant topics, provided access to voices beyond philanthropy, and offered actionable ideas. So these are some of the things that we aspire to do. And then the last slide here is just on our program priorities. Where should we head in our member view? Toward more smaller convenings with similar funders, toward doing more case studies on specific issues and communities, toward in-depth workshops with partner organizations, affinity groups, and then research reports and things like that. When it comes to issues of DEIJ, we see people asking for space to grapple with anti-racism on a personal level, place-based funding approaches, topics specific to traditional education issues, and then incorporating issues of racial justice and participatory grant making. And finally, interrogating grant making practice through an anti-racist lens. So I'm going to stop there with this deck. And I'm just going to kind of pause to see if folks have questions on what we learned from you. Any questions, any comments, any surprises? Anything that makes people excited or makes you worried? All right. Well, then if we've kind of covered the waterfront of the survey and what we heard, now we're going to move into the actual plan that we developed. So as I mentioned, this is a plan that, oh, thank you. I heard, love that we're moving in this direction. You'll see even more of this in the strategic plan. So we worked with an organization called Building Impact. I have had connections to them in the past. GFE has had connections to them in the past. And, and they really led us through a very comprehensive process. It kicked off all the way back in last March. And, what we did was the survey. We also did a tremendous amount of interviewing to really get more context on what was in the survey. Really kind of hear deeply from members what they were looking for in GFE and where we should go. And so what we've done is kind of revamped a little bit our mission statement, the vision for the organization, and some of the key strategies that we plan to implement over the next 5 years. So I'm going to roll those out and let's see if I can more easily get my screen to share this time. Okay. All right, flag me if I don't have the right screen up. All right, so this is our strategy and brand. I will say these slides came straight from Building Impact. We've just adapted them to put them to showcase our new brand. All right. All right, so let me know if I'm somehow not doing this, because last time I was clicking through happily and no one was seeing what I was seeing. So this is just the executive summary of the deck. We're going to put this online, and you can refer any of your colleagues to it who weren't able to come today. So the way that Building Impact sets up its work, what you'll see is the foundational elements. So we're going to talk about that, the vision, the mission, the theory of action, and the guiding principles. Then we're going to talk about our kind of 5-year objectives. We're going to talk about the main strategies, and we are not going to talk about the tactics and the possibilities, like all the different things we might do over 5 years to implement this strategic plan. Okay, so our new vision, Grantmakers for Education's vision, is for all learners to thrive in education systems that are equitable and just, supported by funders who are equipped with the knowledge and connections to advance transformation. I just want to start by saying, none of this should feel like a wild departure from who Grantmakers for Education has been in the past. We are an organization that connects people, that gives them information, that fosters collaboration. All of those things are going to show up. What you're going to see is a doubling down on justice, a doubling down on thinking about the system issues that impact education, while also maintaining that focus on education itself. Mission, Grantmakers for Education catalyzes learning, fosters connections, creates opportunities for members to collectively advance effective, strategic, and equity-centered grant making in the field of education. Those are the only couple I'm going to just read verbatim. But again, small tweaks, but really kind of, I think, a crisp articulation of where we want to be and what we want to be doing. You'll also notice we have a new tagline, and that's Ignite Possibility. Hopefully that feels to you consonant with our new color scheme and our new everything that has to do with our PowerPoints and our brand. That's really what we see ourselves doing, is helping to kind of ignite possibility in the space and help you to be a catalyst for real systemic change. So the theory of change has theory of action has 2 parts. One is really kind of articulating where philanthropy should be headed. So what we see of our members is greater intentionality to the systemic issues that impact education. And so what we're really trying to do here is say that we need to address systemic inequities, and at the same time, we need to maintain a focus on what happens in schools and happens in post-secondary institutions and happens in all other learning environments. And that's where the field needs to change. So what does Grantmakers for Education itself do then to foster that? So we are the ones to pose questions, convene discussions, help you to understand the larger landscape, expose funders to innovation, be catalytic in allowing funders to take collective action together, and create opportunities for you all to collaborate, share success and challenges. All right, and then we have 5 new guiding principles. So these show up really prominently on the website when we think about recruiting new members into Grantmakers for Education. Before we talk about our specific programming areas, we talk about these 5 guiding principles. So number 1, we unite people around the themes of equity and justice. Number 2, we work to inspire breakthroughs. 3, we are a compass helping you directionally to spot trends, to recognize yourself in the space. We support united action. And finally, we champion the cause. One thing you will note on the website is we have more opportunities for you all to give us information, to propose programming ideas. Sometimes that has been a bottleneck in the past. People who know how to get to me can have a program. We don't want it to be that way. We want it to be, give us an idea, we'll help you shape it and we'll move it forward. So these are the kind of real pillars of our strategy. So when someone asks me, so, you just went through a strategic planning process, what's different? What is Grantmakers for Education focusing on? These are the 3 things. These are our 3 main objectives as an organization. Number 1 is centering equity and anti-racism. So you'll recall from the member survey, this is where our members are. This is where our members are asking us to be. This is a place where we have work to do, and largely in partnership. And so this we will be doing, and what you see in kind of just this kind of base language is this is us. It implicates our team, our staff, our board, and it also implicates the work and the offerings of the organization. Second is a focus on deeper learning. So through the pandemic, we really had to kind of focus on let's just kind of move fast. Let's do webinars on lots of different topics. We still are going to do that. That's great. But we know that you all crave kind of deep connection to people who are working on similar topics to you, much more in person. We have our first site visit in Delaware coming up on career and technical education in May. And we're super duper excited for those types of deeper experiences that are super specific for, a smaller group of members to really build connection and community. And so that's where we're headed over the course of this year and the next 5 years. And I personally am very, very excited. I went to our annual conference site in Austin, so that'll be in October, over the past couple of days to nail down some of the details. And it's just going to be great. I'm very, very excited for these opportunities to kind of deeply learn together and build community together. And then finally is thought leadership and partnership. So we're going to really kind of lean into, how do we help you situate yourselves? How do we help to drive the field forward together? And how do we build partnerships that allow us to do that best? So I'm going to say a little bit about the kind of metrics and kind of the rationale for each of these things, and then I'm going to open it up again to questions. So center, these are actually repeats. So good slides, not needed, I think, to say the words. So again, all of this is kind of targeted when we think about the objectives that sit beneath these. Our goals are by the end of 2026. This is a 5-year strategic plan. So we've committed to 100% of our board and staff engaging in structured exploration of equity in the context of the organization and in the context of our individual growth. Our board has committed to that. We have a very busy, really fantastic board. And so I'm super grateful that this has just become front and center for all of us. We're also, over the course of the next year, really kind of going to work to articulate that vision. So we, about a year ago, articulated a kind of first step vision of our perspective on diversity, equity, and justice. We will be kind of going deeper on that this year. And then also, one of the landmark documents that GFE has used over the years is Principles of Education Grantmaking. We want to kind of update that document that is now, many, many years old to a Principles of Equity-Centered Grantmaking. So we see that as an opportunity to really kind of put down a marker in the field, do that kind of thought leadership, but also convene a whole bunch of you to say, how do we build this? Like, what is this? This has got to be a collaborative document that many from our organization have opportunity to lead on or give input on. And so that's something that we're thinking about kind of working on this year in kind of a committee structure. So look for more on that. I'm really excited about that. We're also looking to grow the organizations that exist within GFE that are led by members of color, whether that's the principal or the executive director. And we know to retain those members, we're going to need to kind of continue to make shifts in our programming. And we want to be able to, when we ask questions in our member survey, for our members to say, we see better now what Grantmakers for Education is doing in the space. All right. So, why? This is our rationale. Just this is aligned to where our members are going. It's very clear that our board wants that. We want to lead. We want philanthropy to be able to lead toward a more just world. We know equity is central in improving education and deeply, deeply connected to our mission. So objective 2 is around deeper learning. So we saw, from the survey, we do have lots of folks engaged in our program, but plenty of them, it's just a one-off here or a one-off there. So we're looking for growth in the number of people participating in 2 or more programs. looking for growth in, people who are participating more in kind of extended programming that might have 5 sessions in a year, like our impact groups do. So we're really kind of trying to move more in that direction. And another way we'll hold ourselves accountable for this one is making sure folks renew. And so, so this, this is aligned to what we already do. This is not a wild departure. It's definitely connected to our theory of change, that people really need to learn deeply together in order to do their best work as grant makers. Helps to empower members, and then will increase our effectiveness in the space. And then last is this topic of thought leadership. So this is something that both Alka and I already do, but present at conferences and convenings, write pieces for things like the Chronicle of Philanthropy, spotting trends that we see across the field, and then establishing new partnerships with other PSOs, with other nonprofits, with our members to advance the issues that we care about. So let's see, then there are a few others. We still have to run a balanced budget. We still have to retain our good staff. We still want to put on a big conference that has great attendance. And again, I'm so excited about that. Offer lots of programming opportunities and have members say they like what we do. I think this is a level of detail that I'm going to hold off on, and just this is kind of the cross-cutting, like, do the different things that we're going to be working on. Fit. So let me just pause and ask if people have questions. All right, let's see. To what extent is GFE considering doing some programming and collabing? Yes, with other, with health funders and immigration funders. Yes, so that is something that we're starting, that is kind of pretty central. So this question of how do we work with other PSOs is something that we wanted to elevate in the strategic plan. So that part 3 really is about, how do we partner? So when it comes to some of the systemic issues that connect to education, we really do want to figure out how do we work with grant makers who are more focused on supporting, students who are unhoused. How do we work with funders who work in the health space? We're building those connections now, and definitely that will be something that we should be, you should be seeing more of from us over the course of the year. Next 5 years, I should say. Yes, so I'm kind of looking up in the chat, and so yes, this idea of 0 to 3. Tremendous momentum right now, and tremendous opportunity for us to partner, including with the Early Childhood Funders Collaborative. Other questions or comments? Again, I'm curious about, for those of you who are on, like, is this where you thought we were headed? Is anything surprising, heartening? Seems like we missed something. All right. Well, I do really appreciate everyone taking the time to just kind of really go deep in understanding both what we learned from you all in the survey and then where we're headed. I'm going to ask Jesse to put up our last slide, which is just some of the programs that we have coming up in the very near term. So we have a couple of series going on, and I say series and note that one of our goals now is deeper learning. And so we're trying to think about how do we do some of our programming in such a way that it builds on each other. So we have 2 series happening right now. One is with the Spencer Foundation and Phi Delta Kappan, and that's really on reimagining education. So that's going to be a 5 or 6 part series, I believe, and we've already run the first couple. So the next ones in that series are, oh no, that's still being scheduled. So be on the lookout for that. Then we have another series that we have on the future of teaching. So we all know right now that teaching is in a really hard, low morale moment, and that there need to be changes that are made to support educators going forward. So we've got a webinar on February 22nd about reimagining the role of educators in a post-COVID world. I've done some writing about this. I feel really passionately about this. And then we have another event on March 8th, and that's actually with Randy Weingarten, who's the president of the American Federation of Teachers, and Becky Pringle, who is the head of the National Education Association. So these are the two biggest unions in the country, representing between them over 4 million teachers, just about every teacher in the United States. And so that is a really great opportunity to hear right from them. Both the AFT and the NEA have foundation arms that are members of GFE, and so we know them well. We think this is a tremendous opportunity. Then again, in the vein of deeper learning, we have a session on March 21st. It's called Shifting Power in Grant Making. This, we believe, is going to roll itself into and be the kickoff of a new impact group. So that takes up this issue that allows grant makers to really grapple with it together over time. We think it's a really, really important one, and just hear it bubbling up from so many of our members. So just wanted to point those out, and we're really excited about what's going forward, and we really appreciate you all taking the time with us today to learn a little bit more about where we're headed. And so I'll just say thank you. And let's see, I have one more question. I wonder if there are any upcoming, related to college success, changing higher ed. Yes. We are working on a few different things on that front. Yes, super important moment, I think, for higher ed as well. And so, yes, good push. And I know I personally have a couple of things in the works. I know Alka is having conversations. So yes, that's something that you should see on the horizon. Really important. All right, thank you all. Really appreciate your taking the time today.